entrepreneurs and business owners that are majority of the ones listening to this right now, it's a huge factor that correlates directly to your employees, right? It's like you could easily just grab the job and do it yourself. But if you don't actually show the employee how to do it, you're going to run into constant problems down the line. Align with them and allow them to do it themselves. Be there to support them, be there to help them. But at the end of the day, they have to be moving and they have to be engaged. Hello and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast, where we discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and in self. Today, we have Kathy Clark, the owner of Moxie Mobility Training, a system to empower older adults and caregivers to move safely and confidently. Kathy is bridging the gap between needing physical therapy, transitioning out of therapy, and maintaining independence by providing personalized fitness training, fall prevention, and tailored aging in place support. Excited to talk to Kathy about how she's developed her business and what she's doing to improve her clients' life and hers 1% every day. Thank you, Kathy, for joining me today.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having me on. Nice to be here.
It's crazy to understand the world that we live in today. There is more people turning over the age of 50 than there is coming into the world. Baby boomers and the aging of the consumers that we currently have. So your business really just falls right in line with what the world needs today. How did you come up with this concept? Where did this all come from? And give me a little background of how you got where you are today.
Well, it kind of came from a couple different sources, including a personal journey with my own parents and my husband's parents. To start it, my father had a heart attack at 65 and went into a coma. You know, my sister was a nurse. I wasn't in the medical world yet, and I realized how much we needed to know as far as caregivers of how to, talk to medical people, how to kind of know what to expect, all that. And then so he was in a coma for 2 years. And then fast forward from that, I think that kind of pushed me to go into physical therapy, where I became a physical therapist and then, learned from my patients and how the medical world worked and how what people needed when they came into the medical world, and saw how great the medical field and therapy, nursing, everything could be for people, but also found that we kind of operated above what people understood and how to navigate us. So from the therapy world, it kind of pushed me into realizing that there needed to be a little bit more education for people before they entered into the medical world, other than wellness appointments and stuff like that. But, and then as they were discharging out of our hospital, or, and I've been in kind of a lot of settings. So it kind of showed me at all these settings that I was operating in physical therapy, that there was kind of nothing, like no knowledge to kind of get into it. What happens when you actually are entering into it, if you need to, and then what happens when you get out. And what we are finding, and this is there's a lot of statistics, the hospitals now are having to make sure that people are staying out of the hospitals longer. But what I was finding when I was in therapy in the hospital world is that we would get people back to baseline and as good as we could to go home. And then 3 to 6 months later, a lot of these people were rounding back, coming into therapy again. And it just, like something was just like, why is this happening? Like there's, kind of people need a little bit more on the outside, right? So then I had another unfortunate event with my mother and my husband's parents. And here I am in the medical world, and I'm having difficulty understanding as a caregiver how to tap into the system, how to get all the supports I need. It just was not an easy thing to do. And it kind of pushed me down the path farther to start this company to help people, to help caregivers, but also to help the loved ones stay mobile, stay healthy, kind of come in as accountability factors for them, to not to keep them away from therapy, because obviously I love it, I believe in it, but kind of help them stay well a little longer than before they have to enter, or stay well with whatever therapy is done for them, to keep them going down the line and in that maintenance kind of realm that unfortunately isn't covered in insurance. And we all don't we want to have insurance cover everything for us because we're paying into it, but it's kind of that wellness maintenance phase that's after all of the therapy ends, that we go back to reality And if our reality is kind of what put us into, therapy or the hospital in the first place, what are we doing, to kind of keep ourselves out of it? And, so we kind of come in and help with all of that.
Oh, what a beautiful story. Started off on the basis of education, realizing that people just didn't really know what they needed to do when they weren't with a physical therapist or within a hospital. And then having those personal involvements that you did to really make sure that this hit home and said, okay, I have to go after this business and I have to help because if I'm in the medical field and I can't get clear answers, well, there's probably millions of people out there that aren't getting clear answers as well. So talk to me a little bit about what are you doing today? So you give me a 10,000 foot overview of what the business is, but say, my parents said that they just got out of physical therapy and they needed additional assistance. They didn't want to go back into physical therapy. What are you doing day by day to make sure that they don't get back into the rut of those pains and those problems that they had before physical therapy?
Right. So thank you for asking. That is kind of a loaded question because I'm trying to come at this in a lot of different ways. One thing that we do is personal training. It's private personal training. We come in one to one where we come into people's homes and we look at it's not just about the exercise, right? It's really about how people are living. We look at the home. So we do like home modification kind of consulting. We look at how the people are exercising or not. And it's rarely tell people to exercise 30 minutes a day. Like that is important. But if they're not exercising anything, I'd rather have them not exercise 30 minutes a day and then lay down for, 23 and a half hours, right? So I'd like to see what we could do to incorporate a little more activity into their daily routine. Like how far are they walking? And what I'm really finding, Kyle, is that people just aren't standing very much. We kind of go from sitting to walking, right? And it's that standing it's that middle phase that's really our stability and our strength that it's not really happening that much. So that's one way that I would do is come in as a personal trainer. And again, if there were caregivers involved, we could do caregiver training too on how to, maybe increase motivation a little bit, how to add things. One of the things I find is that caregivers like to do a lot of care for people. And sometimes it's too much care where the loved one should be able to do some more things by themselves. Like even if it's a simple task of folding washcloths or standing at the sink to do silverware, they're getting a little bit more of that activity time, which is helping them stay stronger. Not only is it the physical part of it, but it's also the mental that they feel like they're part of the team, that and it's really about their team, but it kind of helps them feel empowered, feel a sense of purpose. And these are part of the things that we educate caregivers on too of what's important not only for them, but also for the loved one they're taking care of them or that they're taking care of. And that could be for personal caregivers, like if you were taking care of your parents, or it could also be for professional caregivers. Like we kind of lose sight as professional caregivers that we just, want to do everything and get it done and move on. And is that really for the best thing for the patient? And I found that a lot in the hospital, as a therapy, we're all about making people be as independent as possible. And sometimes that gets lost down the line if we're trying to rush or get places faster. We have a lot of doctor's appointments or whatever it is, or a lot of things on our plate to get done, right? I mean, I don't know if you find that with your daughter too, like it's easy when they're little to pick them up and put them somewhere. When it's when it's an older adult you're taking care of, that's not so cool to do that, right?
100%. And I'm standing right now. I luckily my wife got me a standing desk. So every hour on the hour, my watch yells at me. I stand right up, and I've realized that
Mhm.
I had massive hip problems from sitting at a desk for the last decade trying to grow my business. And once I started using the standing desk, it's like, oh, okay. Well, at first I didn't want to stand for longer than 5 minutes. Now I'm standing for 20 to 30 minutes, and it makes my body feel much more comfortable. I did a lot of studying blue zones. I'm assuming you have too, of these areas where consumers have lived a lot longer than the rest of
Right.
the world. And you find that these people, it's not so much their diet, or it's not diet does have a factor. Really, it's their lifestyle, the fact that they're staying extremely active in the 90s, in their late 90s, and that's what's keeping their body going. And it's really, I mean, it's what you're saying, education of the consumers that you're not supposed to become sedentary in your old life. To stay moving, you have to move. And it's a great point that you bring up, and for the entrepreneurs and business owners that are majority of the ones listening to this right now, it's a huge factor that correlates directly to your employees, right? It's like you could easily just grab the job and do it yourself. But if you don't actually show the employee how to do it, you're going to run into constant problems down the line. Kathy's doing the same thing here, educating caregivers of saying, hey, you could easily go and fold their laundry for them. But if they can't do those simple tasks today, they'll never be able to do it tomorrow. So align with them and allow them to do it themselves. Be there to support them, be there to help them. But at the end of the day, they have to be moving and they have to be engaged. It's super, super powerful, Kathy. And I think the information that you're outlining within your business and here on the podcast is great. I need to dive into the business sector a little bit because this is a realm that is not only not talked about because again, it's not covered by insurance. You're not really making a lot of heavy revenue off it because there's no prescriptions or physical therapy that you can assign to it. It's consistent basis. How do you get this education out to people? How do you inform people that this is the way they should be servicing their loved ones as a caregiver or as a professional caregiver, the people they're caring for? How do you translate this information to?
So it's interesting. So I have a few things that are going on. We have it's called the Hey Moxie Caregiver Connections. What I had was like a Facebook Live kind of event that people could come on as caregivers to learn about how to be better caregivers and to discuss issues or like and we kind of looked at it as a therapy based perspective of how to prevent injury, how to, keep strong, those kind of things. But as what I realized was the caregivers are so busy. They have a million support groups, but they can't get to them because they're taking care of the people, right? So I've changed it up, and what we're now doing, and we just got a grant from one of our elder services down here for it. It's a free group for the loved ones to come to. So we're actually going to talk to the loved ones about how they feel about getting cared for, kind of make it light and fun and to give the caregivers a respite, but they can also, they could join if they want to, or they can catch it on Facebook Live later if they want to, see what their loved one's saying about them. But just to kind of show that, this is an important thing. Like we want to talk to both sides of the coin because I feel so many times caregivers just get looked over because it's about the person who they're caring for. We're doing that, but we also have some caregiver coaching clinics that again through a grant that it's a 3-hour course that we have some vendors come in so they can learn about different vendors. We're adding an activity room for the loved ones to come in also. So the caregivers, they can all come together as like an outing. And then the caregivers can have, like a presentation time, education, get to talk about real life issues. And then the loved ones are actually getting some, exercise components. We have puzzles, we have other things that we're going to occupy them with and as well as some balance activities, things like that to see, to keep it going for everybody and just to kind of have a fresh breath of different ways to do things as well as to learn different tactics.
I love that. And getting both sides of the coin. I think that's super powerful, right? Not only going directed to the caregiver, which, honestly, it's their job, it's how they make money, but they're trying to most likely do best for the people they're caring for. But at the end of the day, they might have a lot of patience. They might be moving very quickly. Where if you really go to the core of it, of the people that are looking for the care, find out what they need and what brings them happiness and what makes them feel better, move better, and not, feel so vulnerable, I guess would be a good word,
Right.
or feel strong.
Yeah.
Right. I guess I got two more business questions for you because I'm really interested as you go down this path of educating people and trying to help out this older generation of consumers. What was the biggest failure that you face in launching this business or challenge that you face in actually developing this company that you can share with the listeners here too, so they can get some advice in how to develop their own business?
I think I honestly don't look at anything that's happened as a failure. It's all been a big learning experience. I feel that it took a long time, to get it to where I feel that I was ready to jump into the business. And thank you, COVID, for that. But that, like sitting around with some time on my hands kind of pushed the business into actual reality. I think that, at first it's like, ooh, I think what the hard thing is because it's not covered in insurance, like, and it's private pay. So I'm finding that people don't really have a health plan. And this is one of the big things I like to talk to, like, we all have a financial plan. We all kind of know where we're going to be buried and kind of the funeral plan, right? But there's not anything kind of in between. And it's that health plan that we so need. Like, we need to have part of our financial plan be toward our health because we are living longer. Like they said, the first person to be born to live to 150 has been born, right? That blows our minds. Like the reality of that, where so many of my older adults I'm finding are like they have an expiration date that they put on their self of about 80 years old. And if they're living past that, they haven't really looked into all the things that they might need to get to that point. So we talked a lot about what I do for caregivers and educate them and their loved ones, but I do a lot of just for the older adults, helping to make those health plans ahead of time. So when they get to the point where they need caregivers, they've already got some idea of who's on the team and what we're doing, right? And that health plan can talk about how am I going to stay stronger? How am I going to move? What are my favorite things I'm going to do and how I'm going to do that? What happens when we stop driving, right? Because we're all going to stop driving at some point, and what are we going to do about that? I mean, we could all move to Florida and decide to, be healthy and be outside and do all that, or California or Arizona, wherever. But for those of us who aren't there, like, what is the rest of our plan if we live in snow and ice and all these things? And, but just kind of how are we going to do this? We talk about who to call for what, like if things start, like, even it's good for us. Like, if something happens to us, like, all of a sudden our life is upside down. How are we going to manage that? For those of us that are younger, fortunately, that might be more of a temporary situation. But if as we get older and it becomes more of a permanent thing, we need to have that health plan of how to do that. So I do that. We have balance clinics that we also offer to help people stay on their feet and stay steady. And we try to get the education out there as much as we are doing the actual training and exercise too. And it's all a brain game as well as a physical game. So all of this kind of ties in together, so that's kind of how we're trying to, spread the word and gently spread the word too, right? It's not a
I
fun
l
thing.
I love the brain game because it was taught very young that the master doesn't or the teacher doesn't arrive until the student is ready. And I think a lot of people have this in their mindset of like, oh, they might have been healthy at 40, 50, 60, but after that, how are you actually able to stay healthy when it is harder to move? It is more difficult. It's a higher problem to get up out of bed because you're getting slower and things like that. So you either fail to plan or plan to fail, right? And I love the fact that you are planning to make sure people do not fail in their older age. And I think that's super, super powerful, Kathy. Last question I have for you. You're obviously working with people every single day to try to get them a little bit better, to improve them 1% every day in the fact that their strength and their confidence and their mobility. What do you do as a business owner, Kathy, to ensure that every day that you wake up and you find your 1% improvement? As we'd say, how would you find your Kaizen?
That's a good question. I think what I try to do is just, like Kaizen, it's the art of improvement, right? So I try to look at everything that I'm doing and see what I can do better to reach more people, tweak. It's just kind of like the caregiver discussion group I talked to you about. Like, it was changing that up, like just listening to what the people are saying and in hearing like what I'm feeling too, like there's a lot about the business that, it is kind of an intimate business where I'm in with people, pretty closely, asking them very difficult questions. And as far as for my business, if I'm losing sight of that and just trying to go for certain things, it doesn't help me improve my business, right? Obviously, we have to look at bottom line numbers and all of that, and we have the financial 1% and or more bettering that we need to do, right? What programs I can do, like what is working, what's not. But I really feel that this business is growing because I'm listening to the people and giving what I want, as well as not like keeping it kind of focused. Like, I do a lot of things and I'm accessibility travel agent, like once I get people moving, I want them to keep moving. So I've kind of brought other things in. I'm on the board of directors of Massachusetts Senior Games, which, did you know we all have Senior Olympics in our states? Right?
No.
Right.
Okay.
And it actually goes on to national and international competition. So there's all these things that honestly, Kyle, it's just been kind of thrown in my path as I'm going. And that's what's helping me improve that 1% every time, just to try to see how I can reach people a little differently, if that if that answers your question, that kind of.
That's perfect. I love that, taking the opportunities that come to you and really taking them in stride and making sure that you're presenting the best form of you, and doing that in every obstacle that comes your way or opportunity that comes your way. Kathy Clark from Moxie Mobility Training, thank you so much for the time. If we have somebody listening to this right now that is looking for more information, how can they get connected with you? How can they find you?
Website. I don't know if you're going to post it, but the website is moxiemobilitytraining.com. And you can reach me by email, Kathy at moxiemobilitytraining.com. Sorry for the long extension, but it is what it is. And that's probably the best way to get to me. And yeah, when we just keep looking at, we're on Facebook Live, we're on Instagram, Moxie Mobility Trainings.
Love that. And all that information is to be found below in the description. If you guys have finished this podcast, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next Kaizen podcast.